Believe me, as much as I like to call out the BS, I like to call out when NHL trades are skewed and when we have clear winners and clear losers a few months after the trades are made. I love it even more talking about trades in this kind of way, where we have a transaction that is done a few months prior, and right away we start seeing the benefits, not for just one team, but for both of them. Win-win trades are what we always want to see in the NHL. Sure, while big losers or lose-lose trades make for some entertaining content, at the end of the day, you want teams to succeed, you want players to succeed, and that is exactly what's gone on here in the Sam Reinhart and Devon Levi trade. So, we're talking once again about Devon Levi, a Buffalo Sabres prospect drafted out of the Florida Panthers system a few years ago, and we're also incorporating the talk about Sam Reinhart today too. Why exactly is this a win-win trade? Well, let's just go over the details of what went down and how things are shaping up to being very beneficial for all parties involved. The Sam Reinhart trade was a pretty big one that took place earlier this season, and it came off of the coattails of some pretty big trade rumors revolving around many of the Buffalo Sabres at the time. Eichel, Ristolainen, Reinhart himself, all of these guys were in heavy trade talks, and in July of 2021, we had ourselves this trade that saw Sam Reinhart and his pending restricted free agency status head over to Florida in exchange for Devon Levi and a 2022 first-round pick, that in which has not been used yet because it's not 2022 yet. Yeah, funny how that works. But either way, the Sam Reinhart party got themselves a contract that they thought was lovely enough to sign, and he is now stuck in that organization, or stuck, I shouldn't say stuck, it makes it sound like a bad thing. He is with that organization until 2024, making $6.5 million a season, so good on him. He's getting paid. He was great with the Buffalo Sabres beforehand, but the Florida Panthers ended up giving up not only that first-round pick, but Devon Levi too. And I remember back when we talked about the trade initially, I was honestly kind of surprised that the Buffalo Sabres were able to get themselves this much of a haul for what is pretty much the negotiating rights to Sam Reinhart. Not Sam Reinhart the player, but just the right to talk to him in contract negotiations before any other team, and also having the RFA compensatory picks status if any other team were to give him an offer sheet. So getting a first and a legit goaltending prospect to me was a pretty big deal, and the Buffalo Sabres actually had themselves a pretty good success story out of this transaction. But man, oh man, disregarding that first-round pick because that holds its own value in its own right, this Devon Levi coming back the other way has been absolutely phenomenal. And if you'd seen the video that we had made earlier in the month talking about Devon Levi and his hot start with Northeastern, you kind of know where we're coming from over here, but man, has he been great that we just need to talk about him even more over here. Devon Levi, if you go over the profile over here, take a look at his entire status report and where he has come from. He was a 7th-round draft pick out of the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. And I mean, you never see 7th-round picks doing as well as Levi has, because even though his first season with Northeastern was plagued with injuries, I think it was a rib thing. If I'm wrong about that, somebody go ahead in the comments and correct me. He had himself a really good World Juniors, except where he lost in the final game against fellow Florida Panthers goaltending prospect Spencer Knight on the other side. I believe it was the first World Juniors gold medal game in history where the two starters on the opposing teams were from the same NHL organization. Knight, of course, was a first-round pick in the 2019 draft, and Levi was a 7th-round pick in the 2020 draft. Ultimately, Knight and the Americans got it done, but for Devon Levi, while being a very good goaltender, was not actually able to play any NCAA hockey. This season, though, as a freshman in that system, just taking a look at the regular numbers, okay, he's 8-3-0, good on him. He's got 11 games played, he's got a .945 save percentage and a .155 goals against. Very, very good for him. It gets better, though, when you isolate just the individual performances that we have seen recently. If you go over to the Northeastern system, you can see that on the weekend, they had themselves a pretty packed schedule. November 5th, Friday against New Hampshire, November 6th, Saturday against New Hampshire, and then November 8th, Monday against Harvard. This team was a busy freaking team. And in these 3 games, guess what? Devon Levi only allowed 3 goals. Here's the stats right here. Devon Levi's 3 games played in 4 days, 3 wins, 3 goals against, 73 saves, a .961 save percentage. And man, that's outstanding. Like, you cannot sugarcoat just how good of a weekend Devon Levi has had, and it bodes so well to the rest of his body of work with the Northeastern University Huskies that you can't help but just be super satisfied as a Buffalo Sabres fan seeing this guy do the things that he's doing. He came out of the CCHL, that's Junior A hockey in Ontario, which isn't really noted for being super high-level hockey anyway. Junior hockey is normally promoted a lot more for BC and I believe Alberta as well. As you go further east in Canada, the Junior A hockey scene starts to become a little bit less prominent as more teams in major junior start popping up. But for Devon Levi to be a 7th-round pick, go over to the NCAA, do as well as he did in the World Juniors, and now be a Buffalo Sabres prospect that just has this much level of hype, you can't help but be excited if you're a Sabres fan. And heading over the other way, you still have that Sam Reinhart, who has actually carried over all the success that he had in the previous seasons in Florida. We always noted that Sam Reinhart was a lot more of a consistent point producer, a consistent 20-goal guy with the Buffalo Sabres ever since they started doing extraordinarily poorly. Oddly enough, when the team got worse, Reinhart got better. And last season, with that really bad Buffalo Sabres team, he had 40 points in 54 games played. And if you just look at the rest of the point scorers on this Sabres squad, Victor Olofsson, 32 points. Dahlin, 23. Casey Middlestad at 22. There were only 4 guys in this team who broke 20 points. And Reinhart had more goals than all of these guys had goals and assists combined. So that's just kind of the status that Sam Reinhart was able to establish for himself in last season's worth of NHL play. But heading over to Florida, hey, guess what? He is at a similar point per game rate. He's got 10 points in the 12 games played that they've had so far. And he is no longer just the guy. This point production would have been good enough to have him as the first guy in Buffalo last season, but this year, hey, he's got Ekblad, he's got Huberdeau, Duclair, and Barkov. Carter Verhaeghe is under a point per game too. Former Vancouver Canuck Gustav Forsling is there. Sam Bennett has been out of the lineup, but when he is in, he is on fire as well. The Florida Panthers have just been such a fantastic hockey team so far, and Sam Reinhart is really contributing to that. So much to the point that anybody who is in Florida looking at this Devon Levi trade, hey, who cares about the Devon Levi trade? We've got Spencer Knight in the net now. We've got Sergei Bobrovsky bouncing back now. Bob has a .948 save percentage and a .172 goals against. Who would have expected that out of Sergei freaking Bobrovsky? But either way, if you're going out there talking about the Florida Panthers and projecting where they're going to go this season, hey, they got a game later today, so we'll see how they end up performing. But this team has been in the spotlight for being such a stable, solidified, and point-producing hockey team that you don't care about Devon Levi and the 2022 first. If you do well enough, this 2022 first is going to be 25 plus anyway. Devon Levi is another goaltending prospect in a sea of goaltenders that you already had with Sergei Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight. So at the very least, you might as well use these assets that you're probably not going to get too much value out of for a guy like Sam Reinhart, which you indeed did, which is why this trade to me is a huge win, triple win, maybe even quadruple win. It's a win for all the players involved. Devon Levi has himself a new home where he won't be competing with a Sergei Bobrovsky monster contract as well as Spencer Knight. The only competition he's going to have long-term in Buffalo, I guess Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, you got a few other guys over there too, but just based off of what Devon Levi has done in Northeastern so far, there is no reason to believe he does not have that potential to maybe even be a number 1 elite caliber goaltender. When do you see guys who are, how old is Devon Levi? He's a freshman, I get that, but he's 19 turning 20 years old. Yeah, he'll be 20 at the end of the season, at the end of the year. How often do you see guys as young as Devon Levi produce this set of numbers in the NCAA? Like, this weekend was incredible. A .961 save percentage in 3 games played in 4 days, nonetheless, as well. That's a lot of freaking hockey over there. And it's kind of why Buffalo Sabres fans have been super hyped up, and you still got that first-round pick in the 2022 draft as well. We've seen what the Sabres have done with their extra firsts. They got themselves a whole bunch of guys in last year's draft. They're projecting to doing that same kind of thing this year. So talk to me in the comments what you think about the Buffalo Sabres and the way they acquired this guy. Do you like Devon Levi? Do you like the draft pick coming back? What are your thoughts on the negotiating rights for Sam Reinhart trade? And if you're a Florida Panthers fan, hey, you guys got the contract done. Doesn't really matter anymore. It is just a guy, no longer the negotiating rights for that guy, since you were able to get it done properly. Let me know in the comments all your thoughts if you're a Panthers or a Sabres fan about this trade. I hope you enjoyed this British 99. And bye.